Episode 15 with Natalie Lawerence on the 9 Point Starting with the Dream podcast. Hey guys, welcome back to the 9 Point Start with the Dream podcast, where our goal is to showcase the stories of athletes and the community that supports them through being real and authentic about their journey. I'm your host, as always, Cole Gillum. This episode is just really refreshing and a lot of good vibes and good energy here. Today's guest is Natalie Lawerence. Natalie is a former soccer player, and she is the founder of the Female Athlete Mission, also known as the FAM. And Natalie kind of just goes through her journey as an athlete and kind of how she kind of found the gospel and kind of found her faith, how her perspective as an athlete changed, and how she kind of just played with more energy and joy, and just how she's now using that, her experience, kind of share that message with other female athletes. Love her passion that she speaks with, and just the message that she's trying to share to help other athletes know that they aren't alone in their journey. So I hope you enjoy, and let's get to it. The question I like to start with people that come on is, when you were younger as an athlete, what was like your biggest dream or goal?
Well, I grew up in Orange County, California, so I feel like where I grew up, there was a lot of pressure to just be somebody in some way or whatever that looks like. And as a female athlete, there's not a lot of like future, I guess, as an athlete. It's not like, oh, I want to go pro and I want to go make a ton of money in girls soccer. Like, that doesn't really exist unless you make it to the women's national team or whatever it is. There's just not a lot of future. So I think growing up, my goal, I just wanted to play at a D1 school. I wanted to play soccer at UCLA. That's where my dad went. That was the all-time goal. But as I started to grow and was walking through high school, I started to realize that was unrealistic for me. And at that point, it was just like, okay, I just want to play in college now, So I would say that, that was probably my biggest goal.
Awesome. Most athletes that comes on is like, my goal is to go D1. We all kind of start with that goal. That's pretty cool.
Totally. And then you think though, that's when you're 21, and then what? That's your only goal that you have set for yourself.
So how did you kind of go around kind of making that dream reality, going to college and playing soccer?
Yeah, well, it was kind of a long journey. So when I was high school, I played field hockey, track, soccer, was really I loved just sports. Yeah, soccer was definitely my main focus. So I was getting calls from these small schools, and looking back, that was awesome, and that was way more me anyways. But my ego was too big, and I was not a Christian. I had no faith, and so for me, my worth was all in my performance and was all in whether people were going to notice me and know me. And so I went through a lot of decisions where even I got to a point where I was like, maybe I shouldn't play in college because I'm not going to be able to play at a big school. And maybe I should just try to get in on grades alone. And maybe then I could walk on. And so I started to apply, and this was senior year of high school, and ended up not getting into my dream schools, even with grades alone. So, and I'd worked really hard in school for that reason. And so I kind of got to a point where I decided, okay, I got into University of Oregon. It was a top school, Nike. I'm going to wear all that swag, all the gear you talked about earlier. And I just thought okay, I'll be a Pac-12 athlete. People will know me back in Orange County. I'm going to have become something. So I got in and I decided I'm going to walk on. And that coach had actually known my high school coach. So it really seemed like stars were aligning for me to go there and to play. And so they said, the coaches were saying, get fit and come in the summer. And you're going to start with us as we finish our college ID camp. So that's where all the high schoolers come in. And then after that, as long as you're fit, you'll be on the team. You've got a spot. So that was my goal now, just to get fit. I got there in the summer. 2 weeks, camp goes by. At the end of it, coach pulls me in their office and says, you know what? We've decided there's actually not space for you. And so, yeah, I had put all my eggs in that basket to go and play at this school. And I know that I was good enough to be on that team. It was just such rejection. And I was going to that school though. I couldn't back out. So I was already up there. And that time of my life was really gnarly. It was really dark, and I was a failure. I had experienced that failure. I had to tell everyone at home I didn't make it. I had a boyfriend, and we had broken up, and well, we were together, but it was just really weird, and I didn't have friends, and I didn't have the sun because I was in Oregon. I'm a Southern California girl, so it was all cloudy, and I was just mopey and sad and depressed and lonely. And but that was the point. I mean, can talk about this later, but that was the point where I ended up finding out who Jesus was and about who God was. And God really picked me up. And so even at my most lowest, most depressed point, when I was the biggest failure, I was still good enough for God. And so my life turned around 180, and I decided to transfer to a Division II school in San Diego, where I then walked on to play there, and ended up by my last year was on a full ride scholarship and was team captain. And so, but I got to play soccer. When I transferred, I got to play soccer in a way that I was free from needing to prove myself anymore, because I was already good enough for God when I was at my lowest point. So then I just got to play free, and I wasn't trying to earn worth. I was just playing because I genuinely loved the game of soccer. And the success came later, but that wasn't what I was playing for. I was playing because I loved it. So that's kind of long story short. I kind of rambled there, but yeah, that's kind of my journey to college soccer.
So when you kind of hit that adversity for the first time, how did you kind of find your way to God, or how do you kind of go through that loneliness, and how do you kind of bounce back from that?
Yeah, well, I think like growing up, I was always the person that worked their way up to the top. I never started at the top. And so I moved to a better team, and I knew if I just worked hard and I asked the coach, what do I need to do? Then no matter what, I could get there. And I always did. So, as a freshman on varsity in high school, I was not good enough to be on that team. But there were all these older girls that pushed me, and I grew because I saw the challenge and I met it. And this was the first time when I went to college where I just figured, you know what, if I just walk on and I make it onto the team, I'll be able to work my way up. But this was the first time that the door just slammed shut, and it was like, actually, you're not even going to get a chance. So I think it wasn't just the fact that it was kind of the first rejection that I had gotten, because I think I had those little setbacks as I was growing up. But this was the first time I was like, you're not even like this really is rejection. And so, well, I mean, I guess I'll take you to one day I was alone. Honestly, I was alone in my dorm room, and I had decided to play club soccer. So I was playing a little bit here and there, a couple days a week. And, but honestly, I was dealing with homesickness too. And I was still dating the guy that I was saying, which is a big part of the story. So I'll talk about it. He had become a Christian. So he had grown up in the faith, but not really, was kind of like distant from Jesus. And when he was going into his freshman year of college as well, he came to know who Jesus was. And so I was experiencing almost rejection from him in a way, because here I am, not a woman of faith, and he's going off into, to become a Christian. And I started feeling not good enough for him, and all these things were going on. So at that point, I didn't even think twice, oh, I want to know who God is. I still was just like, oh, he's chosen this other flavor of ice cream, and I'm on taking this flavor of ice cream. So I didn't really even think about it as something I would have wanted. But I was alone in my room one day, and I texted my boyfriend, who's actually now my husband, plot twist. But
Very nice, very nice.
I know. So he told me, Google Proverbs when you are feeling sad. I had no idea Proverbs was a book in the Bible. So I decided to Google Proverbs, and I found a verse that said, basically, trust in the Lord with all your heart and he'll make your path straight. And that was very attractive to me. I had no path. I felt like my path, it's not even like my path is zigzag. I don't even have a path. And so I'm like, I want to know who Lord is. Who is Lord? And so when I was alone one day, I got on my knees and figured this is what people do when they pray to God. I put my hands together on my bed and I just started crying and telling God, like, if you're real, I want to know who you are, because I'm lonely. I'm a failure. I don't know anyone here. Does anyone want to know me? I don't know. I want a path in life. I just literally told him everything. And the most supernatural thing happened in my life. I look back at this all the time and just think like, wow, God is incredible. But I shot onto my feet and I felt like there was almost a light switch inside of me. And I got goosebumps all over my body and I wanted to dance. And I look in the mirror, I kind of jumped. And I look in the mirror by my closet and I see tears coming down my face with a big grin on my face. And all I could think of is like, Natalie, you have lost your mind. Like, you are going crazy. But then I was like, or God is with me. Like, whoever I just prayed to is in my dorm room right now. And I'm not alone. And so I took that experience and I was like, who is God? Because he's real. He showed up in my room that day. He made me joyful when I was not joyful. I was lonely and depressed. And so I ended up getting connected with a church and finding out, getting like small groups. And just like I am as an athlete, as someone who's just intense and all in all the time, right away when I was like, who is God? I looked to find who he was with the same intensity as I do in my sport, and was like, who is he? I studied it. I read about him. I listened to sermons. I listened to music. I asked questions to everyone. I got into all these different small groups. And a couple months later, I committed my life to Jesus Christ for the rest of my life. So that's kind of the story of me finding out who God is.
I love it because I think like something like what you're saying here is like knowing that you're not alone. It makes you give you that type of confidence that it's not just a person that's behind you, something bigger, right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. It's knowing. I mean, prayer is incredible because it's you knowing that you're not alone, knowing that even at your darkest, lowest points, God is there and he wants to listen and hear you. And so there's something about being accepted even in that time when you don't have any walls up anymore. It's just you and God. And that really gave me the strength to keep going too, knowing that even though I didn't have anything to offer God, I felt really just, nothing to offer him. He was like, that's okay. And so from that point going forward, I knew in my life that no matter what I do, what I have to offer, what success or failure I had, that I was enough for God. And that's a powerful thing for an athlete to feel when an athlete is all about, success, fame, having something to offer or else you'll get cut. But that's not how, Team Jesus is. He's not going to cut you if you're not fast enough. Praise him that he won't.
Definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
So you kind of found this newfound life in you. How did that affect you when you came to soccer and how you kind of approached the athlete life?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's the reason I transferred. So, I was a business major as a freshman at University of Oregon. And, as soon as I found God, I was like, I want to do something where I'm working with people and I'm helping them, because that was the only thing that felt like it made sense to be doing. And so I decided to do something in medicine, and I was like thinking kinesiology. I think I want to work with athletes, working with athletes the way that I was. Not that I was injured, but just that athletes are all seeking answers in life, and I could be there, I could help them physically and mentally. So I started looking for schools that would have that program, some sort of exercise science kinesiology. And so when I found Point Loma, it's a small school in San Diego. A lot of people probably haven't heard of it. I saw that they had that degree program, and I was looking online at their soccer program, and I prayed a lot about it. I said, God, I still have a huge desire to play soccer. I love it, and I'm good. Like, you've given me these gifts, like, can I use them still? Was kind of my question. And so I decided to transfer to Point Loma, regardless of soccer. I wanted to go there. I wanted to change. I wanted to be closer to home. I wanted sun, beach. Another thing is Point Loma is right on the ocean, and there's incredible surf break right there. There's actually like 3 different points. So I grew up surfing, and so I was like, I could surf, in between classes. And so when I got there to start this, actually, I'm going to tell the story because this is just too good. So the coach said I was going to be a practice player. He saw a video of me playing in high school that I'd sent him, and he said, yeah, come and be a practice player the first year. Then come in spring, we will talk to you about whether you're on the team. So being a practice player, I was like so fired up. I went from not being able to play at all to being a practice player at a different school, and just thinking, I'm going to have a coach again. And I worked so hard. I just had this energy and this fire to continue to play, and knowing that, with God on my side, it didn't matter if I failed, if I didn't make it. It just mattered that I was getting, God had fulfilled a desire of my heart. You're going to get to keep playing soccer, even though it was just a practice player. So I played so hard, and I got there that, at the beginning of the school year, and the team had already started, but I wasn't allowed to come till after when school started. So I show up, and the whole team's looking at me like, who's this chick, And so I get there, and I play hard, and we're starting a training, and they're kind of tired already. They're a few weeks in or a month in, and I'm fresh. So, and I'm just excited to be there. So, and I was able to play with joy because that was something that God gave me too. Like I had said, ever since that time in my room, there was this joy in my soul that wasn't going to be, put out with anything. I was just joyful. So I was working hard and playing with joy. And right before, it was Saturday morning, about a week and a half after I'd got there, I got a phone call from the coach. And he's like, what are you doing today? Or what are you doing right now? I'm like, well, I'm at breakfast with my roommate. And he's like, you want to suit up and play today? I was like, what? He's like, yeah, we play at 10. And it was about 9. He's like, can you get here by 9:15? I'm like, okay. So I like run over there, get to my locker. All of a sudden there's a locker for me. I didn't have a locker with a jersey hung up on it. And, I was at that moment, I was on the team, and I got to get subbed in about 15 minutes into the first half, and I literally never got subbed out. And that was, I have to tell you, that was the best game I've ever played in my life. I still don't even know. I was playing outside wing, and I was just dribbling up the side, cross it, running, run back, cross it, run back, run, cross it. I had like so much energy. I have no idea. It was like the Holy Spirit in me just giving me all this energy. And so that was incredible. That was God saying, like, see, like, just play for me, play with joy, play because you love the game, and I'm going to bless the results. And he did. So somehow I was on the team after that. And I think the biggest difference there's a few things. The biggest differences in my playing once I found God was playing with joy just constantly, playing with with freedom, knowing that no matter what the result was, I was good. I was okay. So that's a freeing feeling to just be able to play. And those were the two things. And without having my worth or my identity wrapped up in soccer, soccer was just something I did. Soccer wasn't who I was anymore. And long answer.
That's great. So for anyone listening that, has that pressure that that they have to perform day to day, how do you give them maybe a tip or advice kind of how to seek that freedom to just play without, being bogged down to pressure like that?
Yeah. I think one question to ask yourself before you do anything, if you're one of those players who's really feeling a lot of pressures, just ask yourself, who am I doing this for and why am I doing this? It's a little scary when you hear, honestly, your motives in your heart. If it's, I want to be famous, or I want to make this coach proud, or I want to make myself proud, whatever it is, I think that's a really good place to start. Because I think sometimes as athletes, we don't even really know why. We just know we have to do this, but ask yourself why. And the second thing is, I really encourage you to go to God, because no matter where you are, who you are, what your giftings are, what your talents are, God is going to accept you exactly who you are right at that moment. Whether you're a winner or you're a loser, that's not what God cares about. God wants your heart, and God cares about who you are as a person. And all he wants is for you to go to him. And so when you get to a point where you know that God loves you unconditionally, he's never going to love you less if you do bad. And here's a huge key. He's never going to love you more, even if you do well. He is never going to love you differently, however you do in your sport. Knowing that is going to give you the foundation to be able to just play with joy and freedom, because you don't need to prove yourself to God. And that is my biggest encouragement for you, to know that. And if you don't know who God is, I encourage you to find out who he is. Open up a Bible, pray. I mean, I found out who God was, and I had never opened up a Bible. I didn't really know who he was, but he still showed up in my room that day. And then I saw it, and I asked questions, and I got a small group. But I really encourage you to dig in, because I think that's the key to being able to play free from pressure and free from that anxiety and that stress and that fear of failure. Oh yeah, you know what I even started doing, because even after I found out about who God was and became a Christian, I would still get anxiety. I'd be in the middle of a game, and all of a sudden I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'd go down that funnel. Literally imagine a funnel where I'd be like, I suck as a player, I suck as a person, I'm too slow, whatever. As athletes, we can just go down those weird funnels when we're playing and we start playing bad. I started to do this thing where I would look at the flagpole. So there was a flagpole right by the field, and every time I looked up the flagpole was my trigger to pray, was my trigger to recenter myself on God. And every time I looked up the flagpole, whether I was at practice or games, I'd look up, and even when I would forget, I'd look up at the flagpole and be like, oh yeah, God, you're with me. And I would just say a quick prayer, and it would recenter me. And I mean, I'm not going to say it was always easy and that I was always perfectly mentally strong and free, but that was enough to recenter myself always, to just be like, you're right, God, perspective. I'm still getting to play the game I love, still getting to play soccer. Thank you for a body that works. Think it might go to thank you prayer. It may even go, sometimes I would ask God, help me play better right now, please, Lord, but it would just recenter myself. And so that's another thing you can do, is give yourself a trigger, a cue. I had a friend that started to do, every time she touched her shin guard or would fix her sock, because she would do that a lot, that was her trigger to pray. So find something that you do regularly on your court or on your field that will be your trigger to pray and recenter yourself.
That's fire. That's very unique, and I like that. Yeah, just add a little cue that kind of plays in your head. So as you kind of work as you kind of ended towards your career as a soccer player, what were you thinking? What was next?
Yeah, we haven't even talked about the fam. Well, I I graduated college, and what I really wanted to do was go home and share Jesus with all of the mini me's that were in my town. Because there are a lot of little girl soccer players in Orange County. I mean, Orange County is big and girls soccer is huge. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to go coach. That's going to be the best way that I'll be able to talk with high school, junior high girls and share with them about Jesus, because no one shared with me. Um, there's a lot of my story too. As a high schooler, I was really caught up in boys. I was really caught up in body image, what people thought of my body, and all these things. And I just wish that someone had told me that Jesus loved me. I mean, that message alone, I wonder if that would have impacted me. So that was my first motivation, was to come back. And in that time, it took me about a year and a half. I coached and I worked a little bit at my church, doing women's ministry, and I worked at the YMCA. I taught exercise classes, and I found out about Fellowship of Christian Athletes, which is a ministry for all athletes, mostly high schoolers, but all athletes, any sport, basically using the platform of sports to talk about the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so I found out about FCA, and actually someone in FCA had approached me about starting a soccer ministry in Orange County. So that's what I'm doing now full time. Is I've gone on staff with FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, to do just soccer ministry. And what I do is I run quite a few Bible studies and small groups with different soccer players. I help coach and just kind of volunteer with different high school teams and club teams, and mentor quite a few girls. I do some stuff with the college players in the area, because we've got quite a few colleges around here. A lot of mentorship. And in that, I started to have this passion of just the fact that as a female Christian athlete, there wasn't a lot of inspiration or places for me to go when I was an athlete to learn and to grow of, how do I do this? How do I be a Christian athlete? You know, I wish I had a place where someone would tell me, like, you know, look up at the flagpole and pray every time you're playing. Little things like that, where just, how do I do this? How do I be a godly woman as a soccer player? And I just wanted to be inspired. And I started seeing that a lot with the girls that I'm working with Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So what I've done recently is I've created a website called the Female Athlete Mission. And so we call it the FAM. And the whole heart behind it is it's a community of female Christian athletes who are all just wanting to talk honestly about being, what it's like to be an athlete and what it's like to be a Christian athlete, and about just talking honestly about faith and being a godly woman on and off their playing field. And so I use it a lot in my job with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, because I'm working with a lot of girls that I'm able to share it with. So basically, I decided to just do it. I had this idea about starting this website blog where we would hear about different stories of different women who were doing it, who were Christian athletes, who wanted to talk honestly also, who had a story to tell and had something that God had taught them. And so I started dreaming up of this idea of having a platform for them to share their stories, to then inspire all of the younger female athletes. And it's all sport-wide. Even though I work specifically with soccer players, my dream was, like, let's get volleyball players, softball players, basketball players. Let's go all sport-wide. And so one day I just decided to do it. I started the website and an Instagram and all that stuff, and just started to get different stories and different women that I had met along the way that God had grabbed hold of their heart, and they had learned something in their sport about it. And so that's what one of my biggest projects now, and my most exciting things is, I think it's threefold, something that's really cool. So the first thing is that it's there to inspire and encourage female athletes. I want them to be able to read an article and for them to be able to feel understood and kind of like, yeah, me too. Like, I feel that. And then encouraged to then go out and do and change or grow and some sort of action point to move forward with it. So I think that's the number one. Number two, I think it gives women voices. So these women that are writing, I've had high school girls write articles, I've had college players write articles, and then I've had coaches and retired athletes write articles. I think it's awesome because it gives them a voice, because now they're in a place where they're able to give back, first of all, and that's empowering. But it's also empowering because now they're setting themselves up as a leader in this, as someone that maybe this article is asking them questions that they hadn't asked before, and for them to be able to articulate it and then share it, maybe that will make an impact on their life as they move forward. And I just think that the more women that are speaking out and telling their story and telling what they've learned, it's so empowering to have something that other people are going to read. And it empowers us to be leaders. And I think all women need to be leaders. We all need to be leaders of each other in one way or another. And then the third thing that I think that it does is I think it creates community, because as you start to read, oh, other people are doing the same thing. They're feeling the same way as me. Oh, they've done this to grow and get better. I want to do that. First of all, you feel connection with the person who wrote it. There's also like, maybe you're going to share with a teammate. Maybe you see on Instagram, whoa, there's all these other people following, or there's all these other people that are commenting too. You start to feel not alone. And I think as a Christian athlete, if you're on a secular team, you may feel really alone. You may be like, am I the only one that knows about God? Am I the only Christian here? That might be isolating. And so I think this is a place to feel community. And one day I dream of the FAM, the Female Athlete Mission, being something that has small groups all across the country, small groups of female athletes growing together. I dream of it also being a podcast like this, having women talking to one another about being strong female Christian athletes. So that's what I'm doing right now, along with working for Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Yeah.
Awesome. It's very mission driven. You know, that's dope. The fam. It's catchy, you know.
I love it. I have to give credit to my husband for coming up with the name. Well, gosh, I admitted it. Okay, well, actually, we went back and forth for a lot of things, but as soon as he threw out, what about Female Athlete Mission? We thought fam, and then right away we're like, that's it. It's got to be it, because it's everything. It's a community. We're a family, but it also gets that. It explains what we are. We're female athletes on a mission. So yeah, exactly. So good.
So as you're kind of growing this, so like say someone's listening and like they wanna get started, you know, like how do you tell like your athlete kind of first meet kind of how to kind of approach that journey within the gospel, just, you know, kind of figuring out their faith. Kind of like some people it's like a very, very kind of overwhelming, you know, but like,
yeah, totally.
How do you kind of help them maybe kind of get their foot in the water a little bit, kind of just get out there a little bit?
Yeah, that's actually that's a really good question. I think if you're listening to this and you're intrigued or you're interested, for me, I started, like, my faith really did start by reading the Bible. The Bible is really scary because it's not scary. It seems scary because it's really big and the writing's really small and you're like, where the heck do I start? But I really believe that I think that our faith needs to start with finding out more about who God is. Because if we just try to start by like living, okay, I'm going to live as a Christian. I'm going to go be a Christian. I'm going to go, yay, Jesus. But you don't really know who Jesus is or who God is. Then whatever you're doing is kind of on really rocky foundation because you don't really know who you're following. And if someone were to ask like, well, what does that mean? Or who is God? And you don't know how to answer that question, your faith might crumble a little bit because you're like, you're right. I don't really know what I'm talking about. So I really want to encourage you to get a Bible and to read it, which that still is a scary thing. but there's, I'm just going to explain this. There's an Old Testament and a New Testament. And the New Testament is the last few books in the Bible. It's a smaller section, and that's when Jesus comes into the story. And so I think the best place to start is the beginning of the New Testament. So there's the book of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Those are 4 different books. They're the first 4 books of the New Testament. And all those books is a story. It's the story of Jesus's life. So you are going to get to hear the beginning of Jesus's life till the time he died on the cross for you. And you can read that yourself. You don't need someone to tell you about it. You don't need to read a textbook about it. You can read it yourself right now. Even at the end of this podcast, you can go open up a Bible if you have one. If not, you can even look it up online. Read the book of Matthew, the book of Mark, or the book of John. Those are the 3 I would read. And the reason why, just a quick background, the reason why they're the person's name is because Matthew's the one who wrote that book. So it's Matthew's account or Matthew's view of Jesus's life, and Matthew wrote all about it. Then Mark did the same thing. Mark looked at Jesus' life, and Mark was with Jesus, so he wrote out the story of what it was like, what Jesus's life was like. And so I really want to encourage you. That's the first step, is go read about who Jesus is and what Jesus's life was about. And then the second thing is I just encourage you to find a community, whether it's online or you go to church, or find someone. If you know one person in your life that you've heard talk about Jesus, text them. Something where you know you're not going to walk through this alone. Find them. I encourage you, find the FAM, the Female Athlete Mission. The Instagram is just Female Athlete Mission, no spaces or anything. There's a website, and right away you can find other female Christian athletes doing the same thing. And you don't need to be a scholar to be able to understand these articles. These are real life athletes. These are real life women. And I think right away you'll start to see it's less scary. It's not as big. It's just taking it one step at a time, learning one lesson at a time. I've been a Christian for 5 years. I haven't been a Christian for very long, and every day I'm learning. I'm reading the Bible every day, and even though I've read it, I'm learning new things every time I read it. You never really become an expert. We're all just learning and growing. So wherever you're at the perfect place to learn the next thing. So yeah, I hope that still doesn't feel overwhelming. If it does, message me after this.
I'll leave the link at the bottom of this as well, kind of just see what they know where to find you at for sure. Because I think what you're doing is something that really needs to be done. You hear about face this, face that, but like if you don't really know what that means, it's like how do you get started? So that's what you're doing.
Yeah, I think actually if you ask a lot of people that say like, oh yeah, I'm a Christian, if you say, what do you believe? A lot of people don't know.
It just sounds good to say like, yeah, I'm a Christian.
Yeah, and even like just another thing that I really care about with the Female Athlete Mission is there's a lot of awesome people. I'm not talking against them in any way, but you can even Google, Christian athletes, and you may find an NFL player that points to the sky after a play. Now that's awesome. That's not a bad thing at all. But I want to go deeper. I want to know, who are you pointing to, and what does that mean? And do you think about God when you play? And like, what does it mean to give glory to God? Like, what does glory mean? I want to go there. I want to read scripture together and figure out, like, what does that even mean? I don't want to just point to the sky. I really want to know what more to the story. So that's what the Female Athlete Mission is about.
Love it. So question for you is more for me, but how did you go about getting people to write?
Well, that's probably the biggest thing. That's what I'm working on now is how that really looks. At first I reached out to women that I knew personally, and I just have like a PDF. So if you're listening to this too and you're interested in writing for even the FAM, this is what I would do is I send you a PDF. So the PDF is kind of a guideline of how to write, what the FAM is about, some key words that I would just encourage you to remember, like story honesty, vulnerability, just some of those keywords. And then I ask for like one central Bible passage for every article. I kind of have a word count and a few things like that. And then I send that out to, what's happened so far is I send that out to people that I've known, that I talked to prior, and I say like, yeah, do you want to write for this, this thing I'm working on? And most people are like, yeah, I'd love to tell my story. I'd love to share this thing that God has taught me. So I'll send them that PDF and I'll give them a deadline and just be there for questions or whatever. And then they'll send me the article. We'll work through it together and then I'll post it. But recently and I give free reign. I'm like, write whatever you want, because I feel like God has something to tell through everyone. And I would never want to tell someone, what to write. But with that, a lot of times we're getting a lot of similar topics. So I'm kind of getting to be the point more where it's like, share with me some ideas that you have, and then let's pick one together. So that's kind of what I've been doing. Another thing is I've started to reach out to people that I don't know. So just through social media or a friend of a friend, I'll just reach out and say like, this is what I'm about. I think that you, like, God would have something really cool to tell through you, and I would love to maybe have you write for us. And then I'll go through the same process. But I love kind of the friend of a friend thing right now that it's going to, because somehow, like people are writing that, like I would just have soccer players because that's who I really know. But now we're getting like, we've got a couple really fun articles in the queue coming up here soon, like a basketball player at UCLA, softball player at Stanford, these other sports that even a girl who does skeleton racing in the Olympics. Like, what? That's so cool. So just the more that the fam grows, the more that people are hearing about it, and the word is getting out that I'm always looking for writers. So yeah.
So it's been great talking with you and kind of just learning more about your story. So I guess like I'll end on this. What's your favorite verse?
Ooh, love it. Right now, well, I would say my favorite life verse for me is Romans 12:2. Romans 12:1 and 2 are really good, but Romans 12:2 is what really set my life, kind of changed the trajectory, was when I heard this. And I was like, really? And it's, do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, perfect will. And so just knowing that when I found out about Jesus, I realized, oh my gosh, I don't need to do what the rest of the world is doing anymore. I don't need to conform anymore. So conforming is like, oh, you see everyone else wearing a pink t-shirt? Okay, now I need to wear a pink t-shirt. Like that kind of thing. It was like, oh, I don't need to do that. I don't need to drink alcohol and go to parties anymore. That's not really what I wanted to do, but I felt the pressure all throughout high school. That's what I needed to do. I don't need to be famous in my sport to be someone that matters. I don't need to conform to that way of thinking. Instead, I can be transformed and be renewed by God if I choose God. And the end of that verse says, when you do that, the more you choose God and you choose not to conform to the rest of the world, you'll be able to know God's will. And don't we all want to know God's will for our lives and for just the world? The more that we turn to God, the more we'll know his will. And it also says his will is good, pleasing, and perfect, which is just an incredible thing to remember as you go about your day. That God's will for you is good, pleasing, and perfect. And just to choose God, and you will come to know that will more and more every day.
I love your energy. Like, yeah, I can just feel like your passion, your excitement. So it's awesome to see and hear right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to help for sure. And I'll let you enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy San Diego. Yeah, I'll talk to you soon, Natalie. Thanks for checking out this episode of the 9 Point Started With a Dream podcast. I was your host, Jacoby Gillum. If you enjoyed this episode, please comment, share, leave a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts. You can check out more about what we're doing with 9 Point at 9point.com. Till the next episode, talk to you soon.